Hello, my friends. Did you know that one small island, covered long ago by dark forests and cold rivers, slowly became one of the most powerful nations in human history? Some people say England was built by kings and conquerors. Others say it was built by ordinary people walking through centuries of struggle, fear, and hope. But here is the surprising truth. England was never created by just one people. Romans, Vikings, Anglo-Saxons, and Normans all arrived from different lands, carrying different languages, beliefs, and dreams. And somehow, from all that conflict and change, a new nation was born. This is the story of roads older than memory, of warriors crossing icy seas, of kings hiding in swamps while enemies hunted them, and of how the English language itself slowly began to rise from the chaos. And at the center of this long journey stands one remarkable land: England. This story will help your English. Before we begin this journey together, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with one simple word. Ready. I want to know who is walking this road with me today. Imagine this. You are standing in a land thousands of years ago. No cities, no schools, no castles, no books, only forests stretching endlessly beneath gray skies. The wind moves softly through the trees. Cold rivers shine under the pale sunlight, and somewhere in the distance, smoke rises from a small village made of wood and earth. This was ancient Britain. The people who lived there survived by hunting animals, fishing in rivers, and growing simple crops like wheat and barley. Barley is a grain, a small hard seed used to make bread and food. Life was difficult. Winter brought hunger. Storms destroyed homes. Disease could appear without warning. But even in hardship, these early people believed their world was alive with meaning. They believed rivers carried spirits. They believed forests held hidden power. They watched the movement of the sun and moon carefully, trying to understand nature itself. And slowly they built something extraordinary. Great circles of standing stones. The most famous of them was Stonehenge. Huge stones rising silently from the earth like ancient guardians. Even today, nobody fully knows exactly how those massive stones were moved across such long distances. Can you imagine that? Thousands of years ago, without modern machines, people carried enormous rock across hills and rivers simply because they believed. The sky and seasons mattered deeply. That mystery still fascinates the world today. But then, far away across the sea, another power was growing, a power unlike anything Britain had ever seen: Rome. The Roman Empire was becoming stronger every year. Its armies marched across Europe, building roads, cities, and laws wherever they conquered. And one man looked toward the distant island of Britain with curiosity. His name was Julius Caesar. In 55 BC, Roman ships appeared near the shores of Britain. For the tribes living there, the sight must have been terrifying. Tall soldiers wearing shining armor stepped onto the beaches, carrying long shields and sharp weapons. The tribes fought bravely, but the Romans were disciplined. Discipline means controlled behavior and careful training. The Roman soldiers moved almost like machines. Caesar attacked, explored, and then returned to Rome. Britain remained outside Roman control for a time. But Rome did not forget the island. Nearly 100 years later, the Romans came back again. This time, they stayed, and slowly, Britain began to change forever. The Romans built roads that crossed forests and valleys in perfectly straight lines. Some of those roads still exist beneath modern streets today. They built bridges, bathhouses, markets, walls, fortresses. Suddenly, the wild island was becoming connected. One of the greatest Roman projects was Hadrian's Wall, a massive defensive wall stretching across northern Britain to protect Roman lands from tribes further north. Picture the scene. Roman soldiers standing on the wall during freezing winter nights, torches burning in the darkness, cold wind howling across empty hills. It felt like the edge of the world itself. Here is the surprise. Even though Rome controlled Britain for nearly 400 years, the older traditions never completely disappeared. Deep in forests and distant hills, ancient beliefs survived quietly. And that matters because England's story was never about one culture replacing another completely. It was always about different worlds mixing together. Time passed. The Roman Empire slowly became weaker. Enemies attacked Rome from many directions. Money disappeared. Leaders fought each other for power. Finally, Roman soldiers left Britain, and suddenly the island stood alone again. But Britain would not remain empty for long. Across the cold North Sea, new people were already sailing toward the island. The Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes. These tribes came from regions we now call Germany and Denmark. They crossed dangerous waters searching for land and opportunity. Opportunity means a good chance for a better future. And they found it. They settled across the green countryside, building villages and farms. They brought new customs, new gods, new laws, and most importantly, they brought language. The early form of English began to grow from their words and speech. The Angles even gave their name to the land itself, Angleland. Over many generations, that name slowly changed into England. Think about how incredible that is. One of the most famous countries on Earth was named after a small group of migrants searching for a new home. History often begins with very ordinary people making difficult journeys. But peace never lasts forever in human history. Just when the Anglo-Saxon kingdom started becoming stable, dark shapes appeared again on the horizon. Long ships, fast ships, ships carrying warriors from the north. The Vikings had arrived. The Vikings came from Norway and Denmark. They were fearless sailors who crossed freezing seas in narrow wooden ships decorated with dragon heads. At first, they attacked coastal villages and monasteries. Monasteries were religious places where monks lived, prayed, and copied books by hand. The attacks were sudden and violent. Imagine monks hearing the sound of Viking ships approaching through thick morning fog. Church bells ringing wildly, villagers running in panic toward the forests. For many English people, the Vikings seemed almost unstoppable, and slowly the Vikings stopped leaving. They began settling in parts of northern and eastern England. Once again, England became a mixture of different cultures and voices. Fear spread across the land. Several kingdoms fell. Many leaders surrendered. But one king refused to disappear. His name was Alfred the Great, and his story changed English history forever. Alfred was King of Wessex, a kingdom in southern England. When Viking armies attacked, Alfred lost battles and was forced into hiding. For a time he lived in dangerous marshlands, surrounded by water, mud, and cold wilderness. A marsh is wet, muddy land where walking becomes difficult. Picture this moment carefully. A king sitting quietly beside a small fire at night, rain falling softly outside. Enemy warriors searching nearby. Many people would have surrendered, but Alfred did not. He studied his enemies carefully. He learned from his failures. He planned patiently. Instead of relying only on bravery, Alfred built something smarter. He created fortified towns called burhs to protect ordinary people. Fortified means strongly protected against attack. He reorganized his army. He trained soldiers more carefully. He improved defenses across his kingdom. And finally, when the right moment arrived, Alfred fought back. He defeated the Viking leader Guthrum in an important battle. But here is what made Alfred truly remarkable. After winning, he chose peace instead of revenge. He invited Guthrum to become Christian and allowed him to live peacefully. That decision helped unite divided people instead of destroying them completely. Real leadership often requires wisdom more than violence. Alfred also loved learning. He believed education made nations stronger. At a time when many rulers only cared about war, Alfred translated important books into English so ordinary people could read them. He supported learning, history, and knowledge. He helped begin the great historical record known as the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. And slowly, the dream of one united England started becoming possible. If this story is helping your English, press like and leave a quick comment. Do you think Alfred's greatest strength was A, courage, or B, wisdom? Many years passed after the time of Alfred the Great. The kingdoms of England slowly grew closer together. Kings fought wars. Borders changed. Alliances were made and broken. But the idea of one England had already taken root. A root is the part of a plant that grows underground and keeps it alive. And like a strong tree, that idea continued growing beneath the surface of history. Generations came and went. Children became parents. Villages became towns. Wooden churches became stone buildings. And slowly, England became more organized, more connected, more powerful. But then, everything changed again in the year 1066. A powerful nobleman from Normandy, across the English Channel, believed the English throne belonged to him. His name was William the Conqueror. When the English king, Harold Godwinson, refused to surrender the crown, William prepared for war. Thousands of soldiers gathered along the coast of Normandy. Blacksmiths hammered weapons late into the night. Horses stomped nervously in the cold air. Ships waited beside gray water beneath dark autumn skies, and then the invasion began. William's army crossed the sea toward England. The two forces finally met at the famous Battle of Hastings. Imagine the scene. A windy hill covered with soldiers, arrows flying through the sky, shields crashing together, men shouting in fear and fury. Hour after hour, the battle continued. The English soldiers fought fiercely, holding their defensive wall together, while Norman cavalry attacked again and again. Cavalry means soldiers fighting on horseback. For a long time, it seemed the English might survive. But history can change in a single moment. King Harold was killed during the battle. Without their king, the English defense collapsed. By the end of the day, William stood victorious. And from that moment forward, England would never be the same again. Can you imagine how ordinary people felt? One morning, they woke up in an Anglo-Saxon kingdom. and by nightfall, they lived under Norman rule. The Normans transformed England deeply. They built enormous stone castles across the country to control the land. One of the most famous was Tower of London. Its heavy stone walls still stand today beside the River Thames, reminding visitors of Norman power nearly 1,000 years later. Picture workers carrying giant stones, soldiers guarding the construction, villagers watching nervously as the new rulers reshaped their world. But the biggest change was not only physical, it was linguistic. Language itself began to transform. The Norman rulers spoke French, while ordinary English people continued speaking Old English. Slowly, over centuries, the two languages mixed together, and that mixture created the foundation of modern English. Words connected to law, government, and royalty often came from French. Words like justice, royal, castle, beef, court. Meanwhile, many everyday words remained Anglo-Saxon. Words like house, bread, mother, water. That is why English today contains layers from many different cultures. It is almost like a living museum of history. Here is the surprise. Every invasion that once seemed destructive also added something new. Romans brought roads and organization. Anglo-Saxons brought the roots of English language. Vikings added words, trade, and new energy. Normans shaped government and culture. England became powerful, not because it stayed unchanged, but because it learned how to absorb change. And that is one of the deepest lessons history can teach us. A nation grows stronger when it learns, adapts, and continues moving forward. As centuries passed, England continued changing. Powerful kings ruled the land, great cathedrals rose into the sky, universities appeared, trade expanded across the seas. England survived civil wars, plagues, fires, revolutions, and enormous political struggles. And eventually, this small island nation built an empire that reached nearly every corner of the world. Its language spread across continents. Its ideas influenced science, literature, law, and industry. But none of that happened suddenly. It all began with forests, tribes, roads, ships, and people searching for a better future. Just ordinary human beings walking through uncertainty, just like us. That is why history matters. History reminds us that the world we live in today was built slowly by millions of lives, choices, mistakes, victories, and sacrifices. And maybe that is also why learning English is so powerful, because every English word carries pieces of this long journey inside it. When you learn English, you are not only memorizing vocabulary, you are touching the echoes of Romans, Vikings, monks, sailors, kings, writers, and dreamers from long ago. You are becoming part of the story, too. And perhaps one day, years from now, you will look back at your own learning journey and realize something important. Progress often happens quietly. One lesson, one sentence, one story at a time, just like England itself. Hello, my friends. Today we walked together through thousands of years of history, from ancient stone circles standing silently beneath gray skies, to Roman roads stretching across wild hills, to Viking ships cutting through icy seas, to Norman castles rising above England after conquest and war. And through all of it, one truth remained clear. England was never built in a single moment. It was shaped slowly by many people from many different worlds. That is what makes its story so fascinating And maybe that can inspire us too. Because our own lives are also journeys, sometimes difficult, sometimes uncertain, but always moving forward step by step. Keep learning, keep growing, keep walking your road with courage and curiosity. I wish you peace and success wherever your journey leads, and I will see you again very soon right here in another story. Lessons. Great civilizations are built slowly over time, not in a single generation. True strength comes from learning, adapting, and working together through change. Small daily progress can eventually create extraordinary results. If you enjoyed this journey through English history, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Which group influenced England the most? A. Romans B. Anglo-Saxons C. Vikings D. Normans. I would truly love to hear your opinion.